Ladies and gentlemen, it is my great honor and privilege to introduce to you the Prime Minister of Sweden, Prime Minister Stefan Löfven, who is also here with other heads of state and government. We have President Sahle-Work Zewde of Ethiopia. Welcome, ma'am. We also have Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez of Spain. Welcome, Your Excellency. We are waiting. We have with us, I have announced the President of Ethiopia. We have the Vice President of Indonesia, Your Excellency Yusuf Kala. Welcome. And we are also waiting in a few minutes. We are expecting the President of Namibia. Welcome the Deputy Prime Minister of Ireland, Simon Coveney. You're most welcome, Your Excellency. We're here, I think, for a photo opportunity, and one or two more leaders are about to arrive. So I would like to pass the mic to Prime Minister of Sweden to welcome us to this event.
Well, thank you so much for being here, Your Excellencies and dear friends. This is a very, very important moment because we need to keep up pace and making sure that we combat inequality, make sure that we work for more equality in the world. We have progress in the world that is going in two directions. On one hand, you can see positive direction, but on the other hand, a negative. And we must do everything we can now to show the people around the world that the global economy is working for everybody. It's not doing that now, so it's up to us to show the people, yes, we can do this. So I'm very, very grateful that you are all here, and let's keep on working from this day. Thank you.
Thank you, Prime Minister. Indeed, the event is about SDG number 10, on tackling inequality, and the leaders in this room are leaders who have committed to work on SDG 10 and are standing up to champion SDG number 10. I'm filling the void. Welcome, welcome, President of Namibia, Hage Geingob. Here. I think we now have the leaders who would like to have this photo opportunity with, and without much further ado, I will show you to the stage. Okay, the President of Sierra Leone is on his way, I understand. He's in the grounds, coming. On the stage. Who has got the? Who? For the next round. Yeah, we start with the heads. Could someone help? Okay. I think. Could we? Maybe for a good gender balance, we could have the President of Ethiopia somewhere. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, Excellencies. I think the media could start taking their photographs. We are also expecting the President of Sierra Leone, who is on his way. Thank you very much. There is a Thank you. Thank you very much. Could you join me in a round of applause? We have received a message from the President of Korea, who strongly joins this solidarity around SDG number 10, but wasn't able to be here. And the President of Sierra Leone is on his way, but I think it may not be possible to have him in time for this photograph. Thank you very much, Excellencies. Here to explain this. Members of the media, members of the press, you can stay to answer some questions about the initiative, if you wish.
So, welcome to everyone. We've just come from the photo and state made by heads of state of a group of countries in commitment to fight inequality and exclusion. This was a wonderful group of countries who have come together. It includes Ethiopia, Indonesia, Ireland, Korea, Spain, Sierra Leone, Sweden, Tunisia, and Uruguay. So a cross-regional group, which we really believe shows that it is possible, in fact, for countries to find policies that are successful in this area. This has very much been the emphasis of the group. They are pathfinders for policies that actually make a difference, that can bring change. Of course, no one has all the perfect answers, but this is a group who is really committed, of governments who are committed to make a difference. We have been delighted in this event. I'm the director of the Centre on International Cooperation, to have had the leadership of the government of Sweden in drawing the group together with State Secretary Annika Soda, who is on my right, and to have had a close and I would say activist partnership with Oxfam in supporting the event. I'd like to ask if you'd like to say some words.
Absolutely, and I'm so happy to be able to carry the ideas of my Prime Minister forward. And I would like to start saying that when we concentrate on one goal, goal 10, with the aim of achieving equality, it's not that we should forget about the other. They're all interlinked, and the achievements on one goal will, of course, influence the other, and we shouldn't separate the goals too much. So when I speak about goal 10 and inequalities and exclusion, first I wanted to be positive about equality and inclusion. And secondly, I see so clearly how many other goals are linked, like goal 5 on gender equality, like goal 8 on decent work, where there is another Swedish initiative on how to enhance core labor standards and social dialogue in the labor market, to mention a few. Then we have the climate issue and how that will affect inclusion if we are not dealing with the climate issue in the right way. We carry the risk also of leaving people behind, so we need to combine mitigation and adaptation also with social and economic responsibility and inclusion. So I'm really proud to chair this advisory group that we've put together with the countries that Sarah just mentioned. And now we will carry the work forward. We have a meeting in the beginning of next week in Mexico to further ideas built, of course, on research and the political knowledge that all the members of the group bring to the center of the discussion.
Well, on behalf of Oxfam, we are very proud and to be associated with this initiative that is led by the government of Sweden in partnership with the Center for International Cooperation. And our aim for being part of this is really to support a momentum of government, civil society, business, to rally behind a just world that is equal, where people at the top and people at the bottom all can enjoy a dignified life. So we are in this because we think that it takes leadership to push for the policies that reduce inequalities, that create that just world. We see many countries that are making positive gains, countries represented by the leaders we saw here and other countries, where they work on simple but really tested policies that reduce inequalities, like workers' rights, like women's rights, like fair taxation that's progressive, like social spending that's adequate on health, on education, on social protection. These are the things that make the world fair for everyone, and they are not rocket science. So to have these leaders stand here and say, we have a combination of policies that are helping to equalize, to create justice in our societies, is powerful. So we're going to be right behind this initiative and hoping to mobilize more and more leaders to mark progress on SDG number 10 and the related SDGs, like 5 on gender equality, like health, like education, like social protection. We're going to be right behind these leaders, waving them on and hoping to rally more to the cause of reducing inequalities. Thank you so much.
If I may add something that I find very important. If we look back to 10, 15 years ago, equality as a tool for success, for national success, was not really recognized. But now science and research is very clear that the trickle-down theory doesn't work, that countries that bring people together, give opportunities where government also takes the responsibility for not only for basic needs but also for opportunities related to health and education and so forth, and gender equality, those countries prosper more. And I'm representing a country with a strong welfare policy, and we have also been able to have good economic results to deal with climate issues. So it's actually possible if you bring everyone in to the society. And I wanted to say that because even if our starting points, if we look at the group that we have put together, are very, very different, it's the same basic idea that by bringing the opportunities for everyone to the center, you will be able to deal with most societal problems. Then I'm really concerned that we have growing gaps also in our country, but I'm also happy that we are now domestically trying to close those gaps. And they are not that wide because many other countries had wider gaps than we had. So it's a matter of working on this constantly on a daily basis, otherwise you may lose it.
Absolutely. At Oxfam, we rank countries on the policies they have put in place to tackle and reduce inequality. And we find some countries, rich or poor, are doing the right things and narrowing inequality, while others are moving in the other direction of widening inequality. It's a question of choices. A country like Namibia, whose president was here, has a horrible legacy of apartheid and colonialism. But coming from that situation of huge inequalities, they have taken some bold measures like in education. They are rolling out free secondary education for all children, closing the gap on gender inequality and closing the gap between rich and poor. We have a country like Korea who wasn't here. In a few years, it's a rich country, but in a few years, a new government committed to reducing inequality has put in progressive taxation, collecting more from the rich, and has plowed it into social protection, into children, poor children, and is narrowing those gaps it has in society. So we know the policies which work. It's political mobilization, and this photo op is about that, mobilizing for the policies that reduce inequality, and we're proud that we are associated with the initiative.
And we know also that policies to combat inequality and exclusion are crucial to consolidate democracies and political cohesion. So in the group of countries who came together today, I think this is also a very powerful signal. There's an understanding that consolidation of democratic unity has to be underpinned by practical action on economic and social inclusion and progress. So this is really among the most potent political grievances of our time. As Winnie just said, we see in some areas where gaps are widening, this causes divisiveness in society. And there are governments who we think recognize that very strongly and are trying to identify the combination of policies that can really bring together that sense of social cohesion and unity, not a sense that only some people are benefiting and others are not in society, which is a divisive element.
Actually, I wanted to underline what Sarah said about democracy and the components of democracy. They are many, but we tend to forget participation, true participation. And we also tend to forget what research calls egalitarian. It's a strange word, but it actually means that if you as a citizen do not get the benefits of the development in your country, you will not trust democracy anymore. And I believe that this feature is a very pertinent one if we look around the globe, both in rich and poor countries, maybe even more so in rich countries, that we have lost some of the elements in democracy that are necessary in order for it to flourish, and we need to conquer and reconquer that constantly.
Indeed, Oxfam research shows that every country can do more to reduce inequality. Take the issue of taxation. In almost all the countries around the world, rich people and companies have been able to negotiate themselves literally out of the tax bracket, and taxation it takes more money out of poorer people than richer people. Two countries I can cite, the UK, Brazil, the top 10% pay less as a fraction of their total income than the bottom 10%. So you have a situation where the poor are contributing more relative to their income to the public purse than the rich at the top. This widens inequalities. It doesn't bring enough resources to level the ground between people, and it also makes poor people sink further into poverty because they are denied the public services they need. So progressive taxation is an area where so many countries, all countries, could do more to pass the tax burden to those with the shoulders to carry it, the rich, and reduce the tax burden on poor people. So this is just one area, but there are so many other areas where we see countries having opportunity but not seizing it to reduce inequalities. We are excited that now we can start driving some momentum towards those policies that reduce inequality.
This is absolutely right, and the meeting in Mexico City next week that Minister Soder underlined is going to consider what we know about a series of policy areas. So one of those is how societies arrive at a fiscal compromise over tax and spending, where there is a better impact of how government monies are raised and how government monies are allocated. Another area is social protection and how social protection systems are extended. Indonesia, one of the countries in the group this morning, for instance, has a wonderful history of replacing regressive fuel subsidies with both very broad universal health and education programs and those targeted to historically disadvantaged countries and groups. A third area that all of these countries feel is a common challenge, no matter what the difference in their economies and their population size, is access to housing and inequalities between different communities. So we have many countries in which rich communities and poor communities have a completely different reality in terms of services. You may find, for instance, that the access to education is 30 times higher in richer communities, or that the police, for instance, will respond to an emergency call within 10 minutes in rich communities, but within 4 hours in poor communities. So countries are looking at that kind of inequality. We're looking also at the effect of technology and the digital economy, and this, of course, is something that both Sweden and Oxfam have done enormous work on, including in the global deal on the future of work, but looking at what sort of processes are going to be necessary as the digital economy expands to be able to make sure that the benefits of that are shared more equally and that digital tools can be used to actually give people benefits, not just to informalize the way that they are employed. So this is really an initiative that's working very hard on solutions. We've, I think, been surprised to see how much there are common issues across countries, even though their economies are at different levels, but some of the issues are common. And all the countries working here have also said that the political support and mobilization for these policies is very important. It's often that we know technically how to address some of this, but being able to mobilize coalitions with civil society, with business, with other groups who are prepared to stand up and say that we need to invest in making sure that our societies offer inclusion and equal access to justice, equal access to economic opportunities is important.
As the Prime Minister said a few minutes ago, it's also about reaping the benefits from globalization, and this underlines that even if many of the issues that we're talking about are national, it's also about making coalitions in order to see to it that you can actually make improvements towards equality and inclusion without losing your competitive edge, because that would disturb every leader if you see that you will lose opportunities with the business sector because another country is racing towards the bottom. So that is why the coalition is important in that regard as well. And the matter of tax evasion that Winnie mentioned is a similar one where it's very important that governments and countries stick together in order to avoid situations where you would feel as a country that you're losing economic growth because of unfair competition. But I agree with what you said, Sarah, that we have so many, when we discuss, despite the different conditions that we represent in different countries, we have so much in common. Rural and urban is another nexus that is very important, also related to social protection and to housing, and the exchange is just fascinating, and I believe all of us in this group, we learn as we go, so this is a very encouraging exercise.
And Annika, I hope you will allow me to embarrass you in a positive way. On our ranking on the commitment to reduce inequality, Sweden comes as number 1, as a country that has put in place the policies that tackle inequality. And then we have a ranking which doesn't follow rich and poor. We have poor countries that are doing so much more than richer countries. It's a question of political commitment. But let me say this, that tackling inequality isn't just about redistribution. It is also about justice in production itself. So one of the indicators we measure is the commitment that a country has to put in place policies that guarantee labor rights, a minimum wage, the rights of women in the workplace. These are part of what we measure on the commitment to reduce inequality. We see so many countries where workers have been silenced, people are trapped in poverty wages, and rich companies and the top executives are maximizing for themselves at the top. So this guaranteeing a minimum wage, guaranteeing women's rights at work is core to tackling inequality, and we measure that as well. And we see Sweden very positively on that score of workers' rights. And we also see some developing countries doing more to guarantee workers' rights. But this is an area we focus on very much too.
There is an inspiration to bring into this group also from the work that my Prime Minister and Winnie and others did in the ILO Commission on the Future of Work. It's also related to what Sarah mentioned on automatization and digitalization. So I see that as a very, very important part of the knowledge creation that we are doing in our group, and that what you said now is we fully subscribe.
And we also sometimes get questions, why did this group of countries come together? Because they are, of course, countries in different continents, different regions, different size of economies. One reason is that this question of common challenges has actually come up as very important, and it is surprising how similar the challenges are across countries. But another is that this is a group that I think is firmly committed to multilateral solutions to problems. And this is an area in our fight to combat inequality and exclusion where there are some issues that no nation state can address alone. So, for instance, problems of tax evasion and getting a more equitable tax system, looking at the contribution of corporations to societies. Those are issues where you really need a multilateral solution. Something that one country does alone is not going to be so effective. So this, I think, is also a very important signal from the group that there is a real belief that by working together, we will end up with better international solutions for these challenges.
Wasn't that a very good finalization of this conversation?
I think.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all.
Thank you.